constituents don't like it. He didn't even know what his constituents like or don't like. Because I asked him, I said, how do you know? He goes, well, that's just the way we feel in my district. He didn't ask them. He didn't go out and poll them. He did nothing. He just said, that's what we feel. You're talking about that. It's important. If you're going to make that kind of assertion, you damn well got to get out and find out. And so what I'm here to do is try to get you guys to understand what's going on, to try to get you to come to the rally. We got a rally on Sunday. Try to get you to come to the rally. There's a bus leaving from New Haven. If you want to come, I'll get you on the bus. We're trying to get you involved so that you hear the voices, because there you will see people who's had family members who've been murdered, who don't want the death penalty. And they'll tell you why, in their own words, why they don't want the death penalty. Because it's not the right thing to do. So I can answer questions. I can talk more. We're really good at that. What do you want to, any questions, Jess?
I'm really curious as to whether you think legislative debate actually changes votes. Do people ever change their vote because of what's said in a long debate, or is it all predetermined coming into the thing?
Most of the time it's predetermined, but it also depends on who's debating. I know that there are a couple of people who came to me and told me that they actually changed. But I don't debate the way a lot of people debate. I mean, I go in, and the way this is what I believe. I believe when you go in there, if you go in there with the attitude, this is the normal thing, legislative debate doesn't change anything, which many people do, then you're going to argue that way. I go in there so that when I'm done, you're like, he lost a piece of himself in the room. And I think it matters because people, if you feel it, the people in the room feel it. You know, there are some individuals in that room who, when they speak, everybody listens. But for the most part, people go in there and it's kind of, you know, I'm just telegraphing in the performance, right? That's not what you're there to do. I mean, I come out of a community activist background, and I walk into that place as a community activist who happens to be in the legislature. Not as, you know, someone who's, I'm a politician now. That's not who I am. It's not what I'm ever going to be. I'm somebody who's there to advocate for people. And I think it depends on what you're doing. I think it depends on what you know. I think it depends on what you feel. So for the most part, is it just already done yet? But can people's votes be changed? Yes. But that requires work. It requires that you actually are emotionally invested. It requires that you've actually learned about your issue. Surprise, surprise, a lot of people don't know what the hell they're talking about there. It's true. But yes, votes can be changed. And I think that's part of the beauty, that you have the opportunity, should you decide to take it, to change minds.
So she's already vetoed the bill, and there's a rally. Can she take it back?
Well, we had a chance to bring the bill back up to override the veto. She can't just pull back the veto. But that's not the point. The point for me is to begin to do some of the work that has not been done. One of the problems I have with some of the advocates is, and this is a problem I've had for years with advocates, because I've been one, right? I think advocates do a piss poor job of advocating. I think people are like, you know, this is terrible, and we need to fix it, and when you ask them questions, some of them can't even tell you why, right? I mean, you just kind of feel things. You don't know much of anything. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to, I mean, because some people don't really care about the emotional thing unless you do it extremely well, right? I mean, so there's some people who can they just have a talent. They can make you feel good. But not everybody can do that. But you can know what you're talking about. And most people are not good at knowing what they're talking about. Not knowing how it relates to other things. Not knowing about the tangential issues and all of those things that are important. And so that's what's important to me. And so what I'm trying to do is, for the next time, because it's coming back, and the state, believe whatever anybody else tells you, is effectively dead. Right now, after that victory, it's effectively dead. When it comes back, I want to win. I don't want to go through, the governor vetoed it. I want it, if she's still there, I want it as difficult as possible for her to say, we're not doing this. And so you have to do the work to create that background. And that's what I'm doing. And the other thing, I want to speak about people who are advocates, because, you know, you guys are young. You probably should find some issue that's important to you and push for it. Don't be those people. Don't be those people. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you're a liberal, or you're this, and you're that, whatever label they throw on you, people kind of like, oh, I don't want to be that liberal, whatever. Then I'm a liberal. That's what I am. I'm a left guy. And you know what I look at? I look at all of my issues, which, I mean, let's go through my issues. The death penalty. Difficult issue. I think same-sex marriages are fine. I think that people who are transgender shouldn't be discriminated against and beat up on. When you go down a list of issues I stood up on this year, none of them are easy. And so I look at it and I say, I'm at war. And the war that I'm dealing with is a war of rhetoric and ideology, and I have to be much better than the other side, and the left just isn't. Look at the healthcare debate. Look at everything we're talking about. We're pathetic. We have not been doing what we need to be doing. And I advocate for you guys to recognize that and to be better than the people who come before you have been. Because otherwise we will continue to be kind of wishy-washy in what we're doing.
Speaking on the other side, what are the strongest arguments, if there are any, that you've heard that before people's hesitations to sign or to be on board with repealing the death penalty?
With my side repealing the death penalty?
Well, what are the strongest arguments against
repeal? Fear.
That's the strongest argument.
That's a strong, they appeal, it's not really even an argument, it's an appeal to fear, which is a very strong argument. It underlies a lot of what goes on in everything. It's an appeal to fear. If we do this, if we do this thing, then you'll have more murders. Well, show me that that's true, right? I mean, if you think about it, you have to have all these restrictions in order to commit a murder. It's not really the punishment for murder, it's the punishment for some murders, some of the time. How does it prevent people from committing a murder, right? Like if you're gonna talk, if I walk in here and I just say, I'm gonna shoot you, am I really gonna go, hold on a second, which one of these 8 things that don't always apply? No, it doesn't make sense. We know it doesn't make sense, but there are people who are afraid, and you can exploit that fear. And that's all they have. If you go back, all this stuff is online. You could actually watch the debate, and you see people after people, what about the poor people who are gonna be murdered? Who? People who are going to murder are going to murder. I mean, if we're in a fight and it's a crime of passion, I murdered you. If I'm an angry person who's not in my right mind, I'm not thinking of none of this makes sense. If you look at the people who are considered experts, right? They bring out the 1 or 2 kook experts who come up with some crazy theory, but when you look, like if you write a paper, right, and you don't put any references at the end, your professor's like, what the hell is this, right? But these people who are considered experts don't put references, or they put references, and you go back and you follow this one, you go to another paper and another paper, you go 6 papers deep, you're like, okay, there's no primary evidence, there's nothing. This is what you have. I'm not making it up, you can look for yourself. You have a bunch of people who are making this stuff up because they want you to be afraid so that, because they don't have a real argument. What's the real argument? Well, we like spending $4 million to put nobody to death. It's not a good argument. Well, we just like killing people. Not really a good argument. Because murder is murder. It's no better because the state commits murder. It's murder, right? I'm not saying that you don't punish people, but punish people to do what, right? You're not, like if I commit a murder and you murder me for it, what is that really advancing? Right? Because it's not stopping somebody else from doing the murder, and you've already got me because I'm sitting in jail, so what are you accomplishing? Except murdering. What? And nobody ever can answer those questions. But what has happened in the past is people are like, well, I think it's a really bad thing to do, and I'm not really going to push back against your argument because I think it's a... No! Stand up and say, damn it, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. Here's what we're doing to people. Here's what we're doing to ourselves. That's what we need to do. We need to really push back, and we haven't been doing that.
What do you think was, specifically, what was different this time that allowed you to advance the bill as far as it advanced? What did you do differently than others? I assume that a bill like this has been introduced a zillion times before.
That's about as many times as it's been introduced.
Right, exactly, and it's never gone far. Did you have to call the committee? Like, what were the specific tactics you used to get this thing?
That's a good question. And the only thing that I can really say is, one, there's just always a difference because there's time that elapses. But I don't really take that into account because you have the penitent, right, which should have worked against this. I think it's the treatment of it as an extremely serious issue, the respect that I afforded to other people. I think a lot of times, even when we don't mean to be disrespectful to people, we are because we're so sure we're right.
Right.
We're 100% sure we're right, and the way I talk to you discounts what you believe. And I talked to Dr. Pettit. Dr. Pettit actually, this is interesting, Dr. Pettit actually came up to me after the committee hearing. Everybody and their brother knew that I was the one that was making this whole thing go on.